You may have heard points people say, never use the portal, always use transfer partners, but never say never. In today's video, we're covering some cases where it might actually be better for you to redeem your points through the credit card travel portals versus using a transfer partner. Okay, let's jump right in. The first example of when it would make more sense to book through the portal versus using a transfer partner is when it is just straight up cheaper to do so. So for example, let's say that you wanted to stay at the Venetian Resort. You could book this through IHG. It says that it would be $272 if it was just the cash rate, but if you wanted to pay with points, it would be 175,000 points for booking the Venetian through IHG on May 14th. Highly recommend not doing that. That would be a terrible use of points. I would rather just pay the $272 to stay here, but if you're like, I've got a lot of Chase points, I don't have a lot of money right now, is there a way that I can use my Chase points to stay at the Venetian? My answer would be do not transfer them to IHG, even though Chase and Bilt are both partners with IHG and you could technically transfer them one-to-one. Don't do that. Instead, for this particular search, I would just go to the Chase portal, search for the Venetian for the dates that you want. And so for this exact same search on May 14 or 15, the cheapest rate we can find in the Chase portal is $299 per night, which is slightly more than this $272. But if you wanted to do this on points, then you could pay about 27,000 points instead of the $334 that it would come out to with taxes and fees. I have the Chase Sapphire Preferred, so if you had the Chase Sapphire Reserve, it would actually be a little bit cheaper than that. It would be about 22,000 or 23,000 points. So if you really want to use points to stay at the Venetian and you have a bunch of Chase points, it would be much wiser to spend 20-some thousand points this way rather than 175,000 points by transferring your points over to IHG. If you're new to points and that felt like way too much information, don't worry. We have a free Points and Miles 101 course for you. The course covers everything that you need to know to earn more points and get your first redemption covered. Grab the free course at geobreezetravel.com/free course or check out the link in the description box. Another reason to use the portal might be if there just isn't any good availability for the dates and routes that you want to fly, or if the only airline that flies the route that you want isn't a transfer partner with any of the major credit cards. This next example is a tutorial that we prepared for one of our Patreon members who was in that exact boat as he tried to find flights to Grand Cayman. If you have a flight that you would like personalized help with, we can prepare personalized step-by-step tutorials for you based on the exact routes that you want to see. Through the Patreon, we also host a live group coaching session every month. You can ask any questions that you have about points, travel, or really anything else in the open forum. Okay, here is an example for when it might make sense to use the portal for flights. This request is for Gordon. They are looking to fly a family of 5 from Denver over to Grand Cayman on June 29, coming back on July 6th. They have very specific flight dates, and there's 5 of them. And they have Chase, Southwest, and AMEX points. Good news is they have quite a few points. So let's see what we can do. If you wanted to fly from Denver to Grand Cayman, there is one airline that operates a direct flight. It is Cayman Airways, which is not a transfer partner with Chase, Amex, Southwest, or really any credit card company. Or you could take a positioning flight to somewhere like Dallas to fly American Airlines, Houston to fly United, or some of these other airlines on the East Coast as well. You could go to Atlanta to fly Delta, things like that. When you have very specific dates and a lot of points with Chase or Amex or something that transfers to a lot of different partners, I would just search Point Me. It's going to be the fastest way to search all of the different airlines for a specific date at the same time. So I went to pointme.com, searched from Denver to Grand Cayman on June 29, and we made sure to specify 5 passengers. I just said economy or premium economy because there's not really going to be any good business class or first class products between those 2 airports, and especially none that I would consider worth the first or business class flight prices for that short of a hop. With Point Me, you can also filter down to the different programs, so I filtered this down to Amex and Chase. Let's see what we've got. So when I sort this from low to high, the cheapest flight going out there would be with United, where you could move Chase points to United, and per person it's going to be about 31,000 points, or 38,000 points are the 2 cheapest options they have that go through Houston. And scrolling down, it gets a little bit more expensive with Air Canada or Southwest, becomes 56,000 points. And this one goes through Orlando. Gordon didn't mention if they have Southwest Companion Pass. If you do, then you can take about 20% off if you have one Companion Pass, or 40% off of the cost if you have 2 Companion Passes, because it's going to be kind of subsidized by your other family members since you have 5 people who are flying. And then on the way back, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, where here you have Southwest starting at 56,000 points. And then there is a JetBlue option on the way back where it's only 25,000 points, and you can move Chase points over there. Again, I just searched from Grand Cayman to Denver on July 6th and filtered down to AMEX and Chase programs right here. Most of the time, we always talk about the different transfer partners and the best way to move your points around. But for this particular case, it might just be cheaper to go through a portal. And that's because this particular airline from Denver to Grand Cayman, Cayman Airways, is not a transfer partner with anyone. They only operate on Saturdays, but that is the day of the week that you are going to be flying, so that's pretty lucky. I checked this with amextravel.com, where I searched from Denver to Cayman Islands, departing on the 29th of June, coming back on July 6th for 5 people in economy, and the cheapest airline is Cayman Airways. So round trip for all 5 of you, it's going to be a little under $2,800. And so if you wanted to do that with points and miles, it's going to be 279,440 points. And so per person, that comes out to about 56,000 points round trip, or 28,000 points per person one way, which is slightly cheaper than what we were finding over here. I guess if you wanted to do United on the way there and JetBlue on the way back, it'll average out to about the same, but this way you do get a direct flight as well, and it's only going to cost about 28,000 points per person each way. Now, do I love that option? Not really. I would personally probably just pay for those flights and then save my points for another booking. But if this is the only vacation that you're taking anytime soon, you guys do have quite a few points racked up, and if you would rather use points on this one, then this is one of those instances where I would just use the portal, because it actually comes out to fewer points versus transferring it to a different airline, especially because these have non-direct flights, whereas this one is direct from Denver to Grand Cayman. Are you enjoying these types of step-by-step tutorials? If yes, please let me know. Click that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for even more points and miles tips every week. We release a weekly video with these types of step-by-step tutorials. And we also have a podcast where I interview points enthusiasts about different strategies every week. Sometimes, different credit card programs offer incentives to use their portal, which can make it end up being cheaper to book through the portal versus by transferring points to the airline. This is often the case for airlines like JetBlue, where the points price is tied directly to the cash price, especially if you have this particular perk with American Express. Okay, here's an example of when it might make sense to book through the AMEX portal if you can stack the 35% points rebate feature. So certain cards like the AMEX Business Platinum will give you a rebate on points bookings for your selected airline. So you would pick the airline that you want, and then you would book your flight with points through the AMEX portal, and then they'll give you 35% of whatever points you spent on that airline back. You can only choose one airline to do this with every year. You can change it every year, and you have to have 100% of the points ready to go. So for example, if you were making a booking that was 100,000 points, you need to have at least 100,000 points in your account, make the booking, and then Amex will give you back 35%. So 35,000 points back into your account. But you can't just have 65,000 points in your account and then make that booking. Let me know in the comments if that didn't make sense. You can get back to 1 million points rebated per calendar year. I don't really know anybody who's making that many bookings through the portal, so most people don't run into these limits at all. I suggest not doing this with Spirit Airlines or Southwest, just because you do have to call an extra phone number to book your flight. It's a lot easier with the other airlines that they offer this with, which include Alaska Airlines, JetBlue, United, American Airlines, Delta, Frontier, and Hawaiian. So what you would do is at the beginning of each year, just choose one of these airlines that you want to have as your designated airline where you can get 35% points rebated back. So you can do that with the Amex Business Platinum card, or if you wanted to get the Centurion card, For business, that's a 50% points rebate. Let me know if you want me to do a whole review on that card. I don't personally think it's worth it. I have the Amex Business Platinum card, so I do have access to this one. Shout out to Upgraded Points for this helpful article. So let's go through an example. Let's say that you picked JetBlue as your designated airline, and you wanted to fly from Los Angeles over to the Bahamas on February 13. And let's say that you wanted to do this in JetBlue Mint. Well, it would cost usually 34,800 points to do this in Mint, or if you wanted to pay in dollars, then it would cost $433. That's not a bad price at all, and if you have JetBlue points sitting in your account, it is a revenue-based airline, so you're always going to get about 1.25 cents per point when you book. I try to get at least 2 cents per point whenever I'm transferring different partners, so if I wanted to move Chase points over to JetBlue, I might not do that because I wouldn't really move 34,800 points over here for a $400 sum booking. I would probably just pay for the cash flight. But again, if you're low on cash and high on points, and you would rather just use your points, moving Chase over to JetBlue is one way to do this. But a slightly savvier way to book this on points through a portal would be if you have the Amex Business Platinum, you could do this and get a 35% rebate. So we would go to americanexpress.com/travel/flights, or just log into American Express and then click menu and then click travel. But what you would do is click on the flights tab, search the exact same route from LAX over to the Bahamas on the date that you want. I'm going to filter this down to business class one way and click search. And then from here, I would filter down to the airline that I like, which is going to be JetBlue, which is the cheapest one anyway. And then from here, it's going to say that that exact same flight, which is $432, about the same as what we're seeing directly on JetBlue, would cost 43,220 points. But keep in mind, if you book this through the Amex portal and you've selected JetBlue as your rebate airline, then you're going to get 35% of that back. So that means you'll get a little bit more than 15,000 points back, and your net cost is going to be a little bit more than 28,000 points for this exact booking. So if you're doing this through the Amex portal and you've selected JetBlue as your rebate airline, you would end up paying a net cost of 28,000 points rather than booking directly through JetBlue, where your net cost would be about 34.8 thousand points. So that's another example of when it might make sense to go through the portal, especially if you fly with one of these airlines quite a bit and you don't tend to see a lot of good points redemptions that would require a transfer anyway. If you want to fly Alaska but you don't have an Alaska card, if you want to fly Delta but all of the Sky miles are not getting you much value anymore and you'd rather just book it through the Amex portal and take the 35% back rebate, all of those different options are available to you. Additionally, sometimes when you check your Amex offers, you might see an offer for different airlines and you get really lucky where you can stack your airline of choice through an Amex offer, but then also get the 35% back rebate, like if JetBlue were your chosen airline, and then there's also a JetBlue offer where you get extra membership rewards by booking through them, or you would get $100 off if you spend $500 or more with JetBlue. That sometimes lines up nicely as well. I don't have any of those offers in my Amex offers currently that I can show you, but it is worth checking your Amex offers because that can be another way that you can stack to get some discounts if you're booking directly with the airline to get 35% back with Amex, or if you are able to stack it with booking through the portal if you want to use your Amex points that way.
Up next, we have probably the most complex example for using a portal instead of a transfer partner. Remember, when you book through the portal, you'll still earn frequent flyer miles towards status, and that can be really useful if you fly a particular airline often enough. Let's walk through an example for the airline that is probably the most rewarding for people who actually fly a lot. Additionally, if you're looking for even more next-level ways to make the most out of your points and miles and save tens of thousands of dollars on travel, we have a couple of options for you. The first way is through the GeoBreeze Travel Patreon, which we covered earlier, and you can find the link to that in the description box. The second option is for business owners or individuals who spend more than $100,000 a year on expenses. If that's you, we would love to chat with you about our points portfolio management offer. I don't know if you know, but you can get some incredible luxury travel with that level of spend. Book a free intro chat with us at geobreezetravel.com/intro call to learn more. Okay, here's why you might want to consider booking through the portal so that you can stack tons of bonus points with Alaska Airlines.
So another reason that you might want to book through the portal rather than transferring your points to a partner is so that you can earn frequent flyer miles. If you're transferring points over to British Airways and booking a British Airways flight from there, you're not going to earn any frequent flyer points for that award booking. But if you are booking it through the portal, it just counts as a cash ticket as far as the coding goes on earning frequent flyer miles. So that can be to your advantage as well if you're trying to earn status. This is most useful for Alaska Airlines, I've heard, where you're going to earn those points based off of the distance flown on cash tickets. And the way to find cheap cash flights, one way is that you can just go to google.com/flights. Let's say one way in business class from London to really anywhere, and then just go ahead and click explore. And then from here, you can filter it down to the One World Alliance only so that you could enter in your Alaska frequent flyer number and earn Alaska miles on the flight. What we're looking for here is a flight that is pretty long, but pretty cheap. So for example, this flight from London over to Lima on Iberia Airways, which is a One World partner, would only cost about $1,500. And it's a decently long flight from London over to Lima. To find out exactly how far it is, you can go to a site like Great Circle Mapper, type in the airport code, and then press enter, and it'll show you that this is about 6,300 miles. Which means, if you wanted to credit this over to Alaska, shout out to Nomos Coach for this awesome article, and we also had John on the podcast to talk about a whole bunch of different tips and tricks with Alaska Airlines. But when you're flying Alaska on a paid ticket, you're going to earn at least 100% of the distance flown as points. So 1 mile per actual mile flown. So just by flying this, you're going to earn at least 6,300 Alaska points if you credit this flight to Alaska. But you can also earn bonus points if you are flying on a particular fare class. So for example, first class would earn a 75% bonus, main economy in Y or S would earn 50%, and main economy in the M or B fare class would earn 25%. This is a business class flight, so it would fall into the 50% category, so you'd earn another 50% bonus points through there. Additionally, if you already have Alaska status, you can earn at least another 50% bonus through 2024 that way, or up to 150% bonus if you have the top status, which is MVP Gold 100K. So let's say you have top tier status with Alaska, and you decided, I'll just go ahead and buy this flight for $1,500 from London over to Lima, which is a 6,300 mile flight, then you would earn 6,300 times the base miles plus the 50% bonus since it's a business class flight, plus 150% bonus since you have top tier status, which means you would earn about 19,000 Alaska miles for flying this flight. And that only happens if you are booking this through the portal or if it's a cash flight, rather than transferring your points and doing this as an award ticket. So for a $1,500 flight, depending on what card you're using, let's say you're using the Chase Sapphire Preferred or the Chase Ink Business Preferred in the Chase portal, you're going to get about 1.25 cents per point. So this would cost you about 117,000 Chase points if you wanted to book it through there. More than I would probably pay for this, but if you are going for Alaska status and you're paying 117,000 points and then getting 19,000 back, it's like a net 98,000 points, which is okay. And then if you are using a Chase Sapphire Reserve, you would get 1.5 cents through the portal. So that same math of 1461 divided by 0.015 minus the rebate that you get, you could think of it as like a net 78,000 point flight, which is decently okay. As you can tell from this example, I am not the best when it comes to finding mistake fares and cheap cash flights. I specialize a lot more in points flights, but there are a ton of different people who specialize more in finding cheap cash fares. I have an entire folder in my inbox for these things. I subscribe to a lot of different newsletters that have flight deals for both points flights and cash flights. Ashley gets around as probably one of the fan favorites for finding cheap business class deals and first class deals that are paid with cash, so you don't need any points or anything. It's pretty cheap. This was one that she sent a few days ago at the time that I'm recording this, so I'm sure it's gone by the time you see this video. But it was West Coast of Japan round trip in business class on Zip Air for less than $1,800. So I'll link to her newsletter in the description box. But other ones that are pretty good, Straight to the Points is one that I use for points pretty often. Rome, Tim from Rome.travel is one that I use. I have a whole folder for Thrifty Traveler for different cheap cash fares, both in economy and business, and they throw in some points deals there as well. So that can be a good way to find some cheap cash fares
that involve flying a long distance so that you can easily get your Alaska status there. But if you wanted to book that through the portal, it does count as a paid fare rather than as an award ticket, so you will earn your frequent flyer miles that way as well.
I hope you found these tutorials useful. Let me know in the comments if you have any requests for future topics. In the meantime, if you enjoyed these tutorials, I think you'll enjoy this video next.